Iran's retaliatory attack on Israel was framed in the West as a reckless attempt to spark a major regional war, but Israel has actually been attacking Iran for decades. As is routinely the case when it comes to Western-backed wars, the corporate media's timeline begins at the moment that suits their narrative. We have seen this play out recently with the attempt to rob the Gaza war of all context prior to October 7, 2023. Similarly, when it comes to Israel's conflict with Iran, the two have been embroiled in what is referred to as a shadow war, the details of which are quite shocking. While the international media's attention was riveted on Iran's retaliatory strikes against Israel, drawing great focus on the some 300 drones and missiles used in the attack, no major deal was made of Israel's strike on April 1st against the consular segment of Iran's embassy in Damascus, Syria, that killed a dozen people, including 7 Iranian officials of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC. In this unprecedented act of aggression against Iranian soil, breaking international diplomatic norms, the Israelis were shielded by the US government at the United Nations Security Council, blocking any condemnation of this act. Despite an admission from British Foreign Secretary David Cameron that had the UK's embassy been attacked in this fashion, they too would retaliate,
a reckless and dangerous thing for Iran to have done. And I think the whole world can see all these countries that have somehow wondered, well, what is the true nature of Iran? It's there in black and white.
What would Britain do if a hostile nation flattened one of our consulates?
Well, we would take the very strong action.
The double standard argument that Iran shouldn't respond continues to dominate the airwaves. This, as Iran's IRGC have received condemnation for seizing a container ship in the Persian Gulf that is associated with the Zodiac maritime shipping company of Israeli billionaire Eyal Ofer and his family. In 2021, the Mercer Street oil tanker, which was also operated by Zodiac Maritime, was struck by Iranian drones, prompting similar condemnation. Yet little was to be said regarding the Israeli-owned company's role in collaborating with the Israeli military and intelligence establishment to ferry arms and operatives around the region and to carry out assassinations or reconnaissance missions. However, the Israel-Iran shadow war did not begin with recent events. In fact, Israel has been carrying out brutal assassinations of civilian scientists on Iranian soil since 2010, while also carrying out acts of espionage which have endangered innocent civilians in the country. As early as in the years 2010, 2011, and 2012, Israeli Mossad agents have been planting viruses designed to cause malfunctions in Iranian oil and nuclear power facilities. Another kind of provocative action occurred in 2018 when it was reported that an Israeli Mossad team had raided an archive facility in Tehran, stealing documents that pertained to its peaceful nuclear program. In 2020, the New York Times and Washington Post reported that Israel planted bombs inside Iran's Natanz nuclear facility, which almost caused an environmental and humanitarian catastrophe. Later that year, the Israeli Mossad carried out the assassination of Iran's top nuclear scientist, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, in Tehran. Then, in April of 2021, another explosion occurred at the Natanz facility, which the New York Times reported was Israel's doing. The Israelis have also trained members of the MEK terrorist group for the purpose of carrying out attacks on civilian targets inside of Iran. This, as the list of different Mossad-linked cells that have been arrested by the Iranian authorities or carried out acts of espionage and sabotage, is simply too numerous to cover at length. Earlier last year, US officials even told Reuters that a suicide drone attack targeting a factory in the city of Esfahan was also an Israeli attack. Even more recently, in late December, Israel launched airstrikes on Damascus and assassinated IRGC official Sayed Razi Mousavi. Following this, in January, Israel launched airstrikes again in Damascus and murdered 5 IRGC members and Syrian citizens. Then, in early February, Israel was also accused of blowing up gas pipelines in Iran. None of this ever provoked a direct strike on Israel. In addition to all of this, Israel has been the world's top cheerleader for the West's crushing sanctions that have greatly impacted Iran's civilian population, specifically its access to life-saving medical supplies. AIPAC, the powerful Israeli lobby group in the United States worked harder than anyone to prevent the 2015 Iran nuclear deal from passing, then pushed for the Trump administration to unilaterally withdraw, before pressuring the Biden administration to refrain from reviving the deal, despite this being a campaign promise. Israel even played a role in the US Trump administration's assassination of Iran's top general Qasem Soleimani. Yet, despite this long, documented history of attacks against Iran, and around 30 years of false predictions as to when Iran is supposedly going to develop a nuclear weapon, which maintains a premise for Western sanctions on Iran, the corporate media is still trying to sell the public on the lie that Israel is innocent and a victim in all of this, and that there is no justifiable reason for Iran to retaliate.